The Rock's pirates are the equivalent to the Avengers assembling, a dream team of some of the most powerful pirates the entire One Piece story has ever seen. Whitebeard, Big Mom, young Kaido, and their insane captain with the ambition to conquer the world, Rock's Xebec. But how strong were the Rock's pirates actually? I've been researching the Rock's pirates for the last week, and what I've uncovered is insane. In order to explain the Rock's pirate strength, I need to first start by explaining what I call the Rock's philosophy theory. You see, the Rock's pirates were known for being so chaotic, so aggressive, and so hostile. According to Sengoku, the Rocks were even known for fighting each other. Essentially, if any petty argument or disagreement came up, everything was resolved with hands. This was a brutal, aggressive, and violent culture they created, but I believe this is the key to the Rock's pirate strength. When you throw out completely insane individuals like Big Mom, Shiki, Kaido all in the same room, there's only so much time before they start fighting. Whitebeard even backs up Sengoku's statements when he meets Oden and Wano, saying, "You're not the type of person who serves someone else." And I know what happens when you get people like that together in a group, as he's hesitant to allow Oden to join his crew because of how he lived as a Rock's pirate. Another character who fits into this is Kaido, because you know Kaido, he has that complete survival of the fittest mentality. Someone who as a child was being used as a super soldier fighting against entire armies. Kaido is someone who loves fighting strong opponents, and we see this in his fight against Luffy and how big their smiles both become. So of course this would be Kaido's mentality, but it makes you question why Rocks wanted to recruit Kaido. Obviously for his strength, but what if also because Kaido's philosophy matches up so perfectly with the Rocks' philosophy? I think you can see where I'm going with this. Rocks intentionally wanted to spark and create a culture around his crew where the crew would be constantly fighting, constantly attempting to take each other's lives. Rock's Xebec created the toughest and most brutal crew because in order to survive here and in order to take over the world, they would need insanely tough individuals who were prepared for anything. Now the key to the Rocks' philosophy and why it's so important is because I'm about to prove why Rock's Xebec had the greatest haki the One Piece world has ever seen. Even more powerful than Kaido, Shanks, Whitebeard, and even Roger. Rayleigh reveals the greatest truth about haki and confirms to Luffy that although he trained Luffy to the best of his abilities in haki, it only truly blossoms in the extreme conditions of a real battle. Think about how Luffy learned Future Sight. He saw Katakuri use it relentlessly and was forced through sheer willpower to learn it for the survival of his crew. Without this highly intensive fight against the donut-eating Mochi Man, Luffy's haki would have never surpassed its limits. We also see this once again later on with Kaido as he is one-shot. It hits so hard, but he comes back again, and while facing Kaido soaring through the sky, he steadily keeps growing stronger. It's almost like Luffy's haki kept getting stronger every time he got back up. And if you've ever seen Dragon Ball, you'll like this reference, as we've seen haki work in a Zenkai boost-like state more and more throughout the post-time skip, continuously exceeds its limits even more. He unlocked advanced conqueror's techniques in battle as he was forced to facing against a Yonko Kaido. And the final proof of this is the fact that ever since the beginning of the post-time skip, Luffy wanted to go straight after Kaido and the rest of Yonko. We even know how excited Luffy is by fighting, but he knows the cheat code that is facing off against stronger enemies that exceed him entirely, facing off against the true haki masters. And this is why I believe Luffy is so eager and excited to finally take down Big Mom, Kaido, and of course Shanks, by confronting them head on. Now with all of this, let's apply it back to the Rock's pirates, because I believe that by fighting to the death constantly, the Rock's pirates bloom their haki to an insane and rapid growth. From Future Sight to Conqueror's coding, from Rio to Unbreakable Ornament, this constant fighting is actually the most terrifying thing about the crew. This is an insane way of life. A truly monstrous willpower is needed to be the captain of this crew. But I imagine Rocks would have had to fight Whitebeard and Big Mom at one point as he gains their absolute respect by bringing them into his crew. And it's because of this that you can only imagine how powerful Rock's Xebec's haki was. And I will be breaking this down later in the video. But with this in mind, we can finally answer the question, how strong were the Rock's pirates actually? And we're going to be focusing on the Rocks during the God Valley incident, as this was obviously their peak strength. But first, if you've liked any of these videos, subscribe if you have not already. Hit that bell like Luffy and Skypiea to be notified every time we upload. We have a few massive theories coming soon. We have even more massive power scaling videos like this for every crew, every character, and you're not gonna want to miss any. Let's start out with Prime Big Mom. Big Mom is one of the most underrated villains in the entire series, but in her prime she was even more terrifying. At her peak, she was close to strength in comparison to the strongest man Whitebeard and the pirate king Goldie Roger. With her devil fruit, she could create giant armies of homies, endlessly regenerate with her soul snatching, and Big Mom is like a terrifying horror boss battle. And for all you sickos saying I let Prime Big Mom suck my soul, You need to chill, man. Big Mom is big, but she's surprisingly quick too. But we've seen younger Big Mom and she was a lot more slim, so I'm guessing she was much faster than she is in her old age. The fact that Big Mom can create fire and lightning gods and fight with them is insane, but when it comes to Big Mom at God Valley, she would have been much stronger than she is right now because physically Big Mom is the definition of a superhuman. Haki wise, like I explained, there's no doubt that her haki would have bloomed, but in the end, I believe Big Mom was the third strongest Rocks crew member after Rocks and Whitebeard. During this prime, she would have been on par with the likes of someone like Sengoku, one of the strongest and most terrifying pirates, and most likely the strongest female pirate that has ever lived. Remember, Big Mom was taking out giants when she was only a child, an absolute menace. In her fight with Kid and Law, Kid slaps a magnet on her head, slams her into a metal tower, and Big Mom rips it out fighting against the magnetic force and uses the tower as a shield. Now imagine what ridiculous willpower and physical toughness she would have had 38 years ago. Big Mom's biggest weakness though has to come from how absurdly stupid and mentally unstable she is. I'd like to give her the benefit of the doubt and say that this has gotten worse as a byproduct of her age, but we can't rule this out completely since there's a great chance that Big Mom has always been mentally insane and childlike and just dumb.
You're so stupid, you're stupid!
Next up we have Golden Lion Shiki, and I'm guessing a lot of you believe that Golden Lion Shiki was even stronger than Big Mom, but honestly I have him a little bit behind Big Mom. Shiki's devil fruit allowed him to fly as he could levitate himself or other objects after he's touched them. He had insane ambition to take over the world, and he went absolutely berserk on the Marines after he found out about Roger's execution. Shiki is a weird one. He's so insane, but he almost feels like a Dragon Ball villain. You can't take him too seriously. He's almost comedically evil. He seems to be somewhat cool with Roger and Whitebeard years after the God Valley incident. And even though Garp and Sengoku had to take on Shiki together, it was impressive to see him fight against both. He's also the only person to break out of Impel Town alone, tearing his legs off which shackled him and flying out the prison with his devil fruit. The willpower that this takes is what terrifies me the most about Shiki, and it makes me believe that Shiki was a conquer haki user. But with all this being said, how strong was he during his time with the Rocks crew? He's a hard one to gauge for sure, since most of what we know about him came from his promo volume 0 for his movie Strong World. I actually watched Strong World for the first time last year, and something that's not hard to gauge is Shiki's incredible dance moves. I want to say Shiki during the God Valley incident was one of the strongest members in the crew for sure. I would put him around the same strength as someone like Odin, and remember that these pirates would still grow stronger later in life. So I believe that Shiki at this point was a top 10 strongest character in the One Piece world, but just behind the top tiers. I put him below Prime Big Mom, but even being in the same tier, the same sentence as someone as monstrous as Big Mom is a feat of its own. But you let me know in the comments if you disagree. Now what about Kaido? Kaido is a beast, pun intended, a survivor of the legendary Oni race. He's massive, naturally tough, and born more powerful than most average humans by a long shot. When I look at young Kaido, I look at him like a young Luffy or Zoro. He's walking around 20 or 21 at that time, and he's being recruited to the Rocks specifically. This means that Rocks himself saw the potential in the Drunk Dragon. We also know that Kaido received his Dragon Devil Fruit that day at God Valley, which must have given him a significant boost. Even if he couldn't fully control it, as he probably couldn't immediately fly and levitate islands from the jump, he probably also couldn't use the hybrid form right away. But the skills, the durability, the toughness, and the overall strength is an instant boost. Haki wise, Kaido must have been a monster despite his age, and same for his raw fighting capability. If I have to give a range for Kaido's strength during this time, I'd say he was as strong as a post-Wano Zoro during the God Valley incident. Not quite yet on the strength of a Yonko, but still impressive to say the least. While Kaido may not be as strong as the top members of the Rocks crew, he makes up for this as he could be utilized as one of the best fighters. There's only so many characters that are better at fighting from a raw talent perspective. I'd say that after Rocks, Big Mom, Shiki, and Whitebeard, it's likely that Kaido was the 5th strongest member of this crew, and just hearing that sounds absurd. Now what about the scientist of the crew, Miss Buckingham Stussy? Considering Stussy should have been the scientist of the crew, she shouldn't be very strong, right? Wrong. After seeing Stussy's clone and what she's capable of, she's made a mockery of CP0's Lucci and Kaku, crew. Albeit this is a clone of the former Rock's pirate, but if Stussy was even remotely close to his strength, it just goes to show how deep the Rock's crew ran, to the point where even the scientist was a problem. Lucci couldn't even keep up with Stussy, that's how quick she was, and because of the lineage factor alterations that happens from devil fruits, it's likely that the original Stussy had this bat or vampire succubus devil fruit powers as well. I don't think her strength is anywhere near the top dogs of the crew like Big Mom or Whitebeard, but Stussy even being the 6th, 7th, or 8th member of the crew is a terrifying notion to consider. Because she is the first successful clone, I'm guessing Stussy doesn't have any insane modifications like the Seraph and Pacifista. And if this is true, this will make the OG Rocks members all the more impressive. Strength wise, she's higher than Lucci, so I'm going somewhere around maybe a little bit below the first Yonko commander range. It's tough to know if this was just a fluke, but I was very impressed with Whitebeard's baby mama. Up next we have Captain John Wang Ji and Silver Axe. Captain John was a legendary treasure hunter, as his treasure is even known by Buggy and sought after decades later. Maintaining the respect of the Rocks and other members, it seems like Rock specifically sought after powerful pirates so that he could overthrow the world government and become king of the world. We know that Captain John was a swordsman, and considering Mordia went after powerful corpses like Oris and Ryuma, I wouldn't be surprised if John was also as strong as Stussy, or maybe even stronger. Now when it comes to Wang Ji, also known as Ochoku, and then we also have Silver Axe, I like to think that they are powerful as well. There's a great chance these are the weaker members, but because of the Rock's philosophy, we have to assume that they're at least decently powerful. This gives them a little bit more respect and legendary status, however not quite on the level of the top tiers. Considering we know Roger and Rayleigh were at God Valley, it makes you wonder, what about the rest of the Roger pirates? For example, if Scopper Gaben was already on Roger's crew at that time, I could see him being the perfect matchup for someone like Silver Axe, since we see Gaben wielding dual axes during the Odin flashback. If this theory is true, then we have to put some respect on Silver Axe at the very least, since we know that Gaben is a powerful member of the Pirate King stat crew. There's really nothing to go off when predicting how strong these three are, so this scenario is where once again I'm choosing to believe the hype. I'm fully buying in, and I'm upscaling quite a bit due to how brutal and aggressive the crew was. They had to be at least decently powerful to gain the respect of Sengoku, as he mentioned them during this chapter, in a fight against Roger and Garp's combined efforts. As you can see, I've left the best for last. Well, the best too. But before we get to Whitebeard and Rocks, consider leaving a super thanks in the comments with your hottest One Piece takes for a chance to be featured in a future video. Our goal is to go full time on YouTube, so if you want to help us reach this goal, you can also check out our Patreon in the description. Thanks for all your constant support. Whitebeard, or Edward Newgate, is known as the world's strongest man. Physically, I would argue there's no one on his level. One thing we don't know is if Whitebeard already ate his devil fruit before he joined the Rocks Pirates. It's possible that he ate it after God Valley, because believe it or not, Whitebeard wasn't even in his prime until a few years after the God Valley incident. So this means that he either ate his devil fruit, fought some insane battles against some of the most powerful pirates after they split up. I'm talking guys like Roger, Kaido, Sengoku, Big Mom, because there has to be something that pushed him into his peak, getting stronger before he finally started his crew. I can see it going both ways, but one reason I actually believe Whitebeard already had his devil fruit while he was with the Rocks Pirates is because we know God Valley disappeared, and on this channel, if you watch our ultimate God Valley theory, we make the case for Whitebeard launching God Valley into the sky with his devil fruit like a knock-up stream. Now of course, it's all speculation, but if anyone could do it, it would be a younger Whitebeard with a fruit that gives him the power to destroy the world. I believe Whitebeard was essentially Rox D. Xebec's right-hand man, the first commander of the Rocks Pirates, the second strongest at that time, and the core of the crew who kept everything together. He would have had to be strong to face off against Big Mom, Kaido, Shiki, and even Xebec on a regular basis. And with how crazy Rox D. Xebec seems, there's no doubt in my mind that these pirates were going on absurd missions which would lead to fighting against powerful marines like Sengoku and Garp. We also know Rox was Roger's greatest enemy, which means that these guys would have already been facing against Roger and Rayleigh many times while the crew was still intact. But aside from superhuman strength, Whitebeard is also respectively fast and one of the greatest fighters in One Piece. He's mature, focused, a true warrior. In Marineford, we saw how calm, how collected he was as a true leader in the middle of a war. And I think this makes Whitebeard the strongest first commander that we've ever seen, even stronger than guys like Ben Beckman, Sabo, and Zoro. What puts Whitebeard over the edge is the insane fact that he was a rival to Goldie Roger in strength. He had a 5 billion berry bounty, and Whitebeard is known as the world's strongest. If we consider that this guy also has ridiculous haki clashing with Roger and a willpower that makes him a conqueror, we know that Whitebeard was an absolute absolute monster, even if he wasn't at his peak strength yet. Now, if we give him that devil fruit, it's a truly terrifying opponent that only the most powerful characters even stand a chance against. You have to imagine that he was definitely fighting up against Roger, Garp, and Rayleigh, and hell, I'll even throw in Bogart just for fun. At this time, I like to say that he was definitely a top 5 strongest characters in the entire One Piece world, only behind his captain and Monkey D. Garp. He was also on the same level as the future Pirate King Gold D. Roger. Now, if Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shiki, and everyone else on the same crew isn't already hype enough, it's finally time to look towards the man who had the ambition, the respect and authority, the raw power to rein in these absolute beasts, the monstrous pirates, into one combined goal to conquer the world. Essentially, this is the man who was the biggest conqueror of them all. It's finally time to break down how strong was Roxy Xebec. I've always wanted to make this video. The God Valley Rocks Pirates chapter is my single favorite chapter in the entire series. I remember yelling out in excitement at the mere thought of the crew, but the star at the center of this event was definitely Roxy Xebec. The first thing to consider is that Roxy Xebec had to be at least on par with Prime Beard and Prime Roger. And the reason I say this is because as the captain, we know that Rox had to be even stronger than Whitebeard at God Valley. And since Whitebeard didn't even reach his prime until years later, we can assume that Rox was around that peak Whitebeard strength already. We don't know much about Rox as his name has been lost to history, only remembered by the great ones. How old was he? What race was he? Did he have a devil fruit? These are the questions and answers that we need, as this information would be valuable to be way more precise with his strength. You see, I could sit here and try to convince you that Roxy Xebec was a Lunarian who cut off his wings because of his Jolly Roger showing a flame or demon horn, and the fact that all 3 Rox members in Wano are the only characters to show knowledge on Lunarians until Egghead. But the fact that I don't even have to do this is what shows how respected Roxy Xebec is. We all just fully accept that no matter how the explanation, Rox is quite simply built different. You can see how tall he is in comparison to Big Mom, Kaido, and Whitebeard, which makes me think that he was a lot closer to Shanks or Garp's size. And we know he had a sword when he fought at God Valley, and he had to be strong in haki. But you see, this is where I have my hottest take of the video, because I believe that Roxy Xebec is even stronger than Prime Whitebeard and Prime Roger due to the fact that I believe that Xebec had the most unbelievably powerful haki, a willpower so terrifyingly unmovable. I think that by the end of the series, the only character who will surpass Rox in haki will be Luffy. In One Piece, ambition is somewhat symmetrical to power and potential. Now, I'm not saying that Roxy Xebec was leagues ahead of Roger or leagues ahead of Whitebeard. I'm saying they're all on the same tier, but if I had to pick, I'd pick Roxy Xebec. He was someone who wanted to go directly at the world government like an insane war general, and going directly at the world government is some Luffy level energy. Luffy has shown this in Enies Lobby, but imagine if you really pissed off Luffy. I mean, he was ready to charge into Mary Joa until Zoro stopped him, but Roxy Xebec is just going straight at these guys. There's no doubt in my mind that Xebec's haki had to be ahead of his crew, because otherwise these insane Big Moms, Shikis, and even Whitebeards might fight him and overthrow him. Rox had the confidence to bring this crew together. He had the confidence to earn all their respect, and he had the confidence to challenge the world. And sure, yeah, he could have shown his crew some cool treasure, but ultimately this crew was built on the foundation of strength. I mean, Kaido purely respects strength. Whatever we saw Shanks do at Wano, Rox had that type of power, the power that can be felt from the opposite coast of the island. Also, being Roger's greatest enemy, in my opinion, this implies that he was always stronger than Roger while they were both alive. I mean, maybe, and I'll give credit to Garp here, because I think it's possible that Garp was on par with Rox during God Valley, because to be fair, he is one of the main stars of this show just as much as Rox was. But personally, I have Rox ahead of Garp, and so I'm not saying that Roxy Xebec is leagues ahead of Whitebeard and Roger, but it's just a matter of having to pick between these legends is always going to be a close call. But at the end of the day, it's no fun unless we pick one over the other. Is it possible that Rox had a busted devil fruit as well? Maybe a Logia, or maybe a mythical zone? It's unclear. However, if Rox did all of this while still being able to swim, that's even more impressive. And even if he did have a good devil fruit, it makes him all the more broken of a fighter. I actually do think that he could have a unique devil fruit that we haven't even seen yet, since the Yonkos that derive from this crew crew, and even Shiki all had amazing powerful fruits. I mean, Kaido's devil fruit is my favorite fruit in the entire series, and he ate it during this time at God Valley with the crew. If I had to choose a fruit for Xebec, imagine if he was the previous owner of the Yami Yami Nomi before Blackbeard. What the parallels between the two, that would be absolutely insane. On their own, the Rocks Pirates are already extremely powerful, but as a unit, there's almost no one except a team up from Roger, Rayleigh, Garp, and of course Bogart that could take on these monsters. Imagine Shiki flying around levitating multiple marine battleships and chucking them across the ocean. Then you have Whitebeard taking out fleas left and right with his tsunamis. Meanwhile, Kaido is turning into a giant dragon and blasting away hordes of enemies. With all these conquerors, you can imagine any fodder being brought to their knees with a powerful presence alone. I think the fact that Rocks is known as Roger's first and greatest enemy backs up the idea that the crew had battles even before God Valley. Let's say we put the Rocks Pirates up against other pirates. It's crazy to think that at some point Roger could have lost to Xebec, Rayleigh could have lost to Whitebeard, and Gaban would have lost to Shiki or Big Mom even before the God Valley incident. This is why the Marines needed to join forces with one of the most renowned pirate crews. Normally, Xebec alone is enough to cause insane damage, but adding these other pirates is simply overkill. If anyone had the chance to take over the world, it was definitely Roxy Xebec, and with a goal this grand, it's only fitting. He put together a legit super team. The one factor that could have limited the full potential of the Rocks Pirates is ironically what makes them strong, their bonding culture as a crew. With so many pirates that hate each other and are constantly at odds fighting, it's tough to know if in the end this strengthened or threatened their chemistry. Was it a love-hate relationship, or did they just hate each other's guts completely? Obviously, from Whitebeard's perspective, it's clear that he had grown tired of this nonsense. But then there's other examples like Big Mom and Kaido who have a very close bond in their youth. Big Mom even goes out of her way to go and look for Kaido after God Valley. They have a very brother-sister like bond. But putting their differences aside, when they came together, I believe the Rocks Pirates are the single most powerful pirate crew ever assembled. And I don't know if there will ever be another crew to match the notoriety of the Rocks. That is, except one crew that I think we all know has a shot at it, and that is Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates. If you liked anything I said here, leave a like, and if you want to see my hottest take about the world's strongest man Whitebeard and find out how strong he was in his prime, click on this video.